Question 1. The audit findings indicate that a critical IBM cloud database containing customer personally identifiable information, PI, has overly permissive access controls configured, allowing multiple service instances and user groups to have broad read and write privileges beyond their operational necessity. Which of the following actions represents the most appropriate and compliant remediation strategy? Option A. Conduct a thorough review of all IAM policies and service access controls associated with the database. Implement granular access policies based on the principle of least privilege, granting only the specific permissions required for each service instance and user group to perform their designated functions. Option B. Rely on existing network firewall rules to prevent unauthorized access from outside the IBM cloud network, assuming internal access is adequately managed. Option C. Immediately disable all external network access to the database and restrict access to only a single, highly secured bastion host. Option D. Decommission the database and migrate all customer PII to a new, unconfigured IBM Cloud Object Storage bucket with default security settings. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough review of all IAM policies and service access controls associated with the database. Implement granular access policies based on the principle of least privilege, granting only the specific permissions required for each service instance and user group to perform their designated functions. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential misconfiguration in how sensitive customer data is being accessed and managed within the IBM cloud environment. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a deep understanding of IBM Cloud security services and their proper implementation to ensure compliance with data protection regulations. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the need for data accessibility for legitimate business purposes with the imperative to prevent unauthorized access and maintain data integrity and confidentiality. Careful judgment is required to identify the root cause of the misconfiguration and implement the most effective remediation strategy. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified audit finding by leveraging IBM Cloud's built-in security and access control mechanisms. Specifically, it involves a comprehensive review and reconfiguration of identity and access management, IAM, policies and service access controls. This ensures that only authorized users and services have the minimum necessary privileges to access sensitive data, adhering to the principle of least privilege. This aligns with the foundational security principles expected in cloud environments and is crucial for meeting regulatory requirements related to data privacy and security, such as those that might be enforced by a governing body like the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC), or the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act (HIPAA), if applicable to the data type. An incorrect approach that involves simply disabling all access to the sensitive data is professionally unacceptable. This is because it fails to meet legitimate business needs, potentially disrupting critical operations and impacting service delivery. From a regulatory perspective, while it might appear to be a drastic security measure, it demonstrates a lack of nuanced understanding of security controls and business continuity. It also fails to address the underlying configuration issue, leaving the system vulnerable to similar problems in the future. Another incorrect approach, such as relying solely on network-level firewalls without reviewing IAM policies, is also professionally unacceptable. While firewalls are a vital component of a layered security strategy, they are insufficient on their own to control access to data within IBM cloud services. IAM policies are specifically designed to govern who can access what resources and perform what actions within the cloud environment. Neglecting IAM leaves a significant gap in security, as internal threats or compromised credentials could still bypass network controls and access sensitive data. This failure to implement granular access controls is a direct contravention of best practices for cloud security and could lead to regulatory noncompliance. A third incorrect approach, which is to ignore the audit finding and assume the current configuration is adequate, is the most egregious failure. This demonstrates a severe lack of professional responsibility and a disregard for security best practices and potential regulatory implications. Ignoring audit findings can lead to significant data breaches, reputational damage, and substantial financial penalties. It signifies a failure to proactively manage risk and maintain a secure cloud posture. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, thoroughly understand the audit finding and its potential impact. Second, consult IBM cloud documentation and best practices for the relevant services. Third, analyze the current configuration of IAM policies, access controls, and any other relevant security settings. Fourth, identify the most appropriate IBM cloud security services and configurations to address the finding, prioritizing solutions that adhere to the principle of least privilege and meet business requirements. Finally, implement the chosen solution, thoroughly test it, and document the changes and the rationale behind them. This structured approach ensures that security measures are effective, compliant, and aligned with organizational objectives. Question 2. Market research demonstrates that organizations are increasingly seeking to optimize cloud spending. A project team is tasked with reducing the operational costs associated with storing customer data in IBM Cloud. The team proposes migrating all customer data to a lower-cost object storage tier to achieve significant savings. However, they have not yet assessed the sensitivity of the data or confirmed if this storage tier meets all relevant data residency and privacy regulations applicable to the organization's customer base. What is the most responsible approach to address this cost optimization initiative? Option A. Implement the migration to the lower-cost storage tier and rely on IBM Cloud's general security features to protect the data, assuming that all data is adequately protected by default. Option B. Inform the stakeholders that cost optimization is not possible without potentially violating regulations, and therefore, no changes should be made to the current data storage strategy. Option C. Conduct a thorough data classification exercise to understand the sensitivity of customer data and consult with legal and compliance teams to ensure the proposed storage tier meets all regulatory requirements before proceeding with any migration. Option D. Immediately proceed with migrating all customer data to the lower-cost object storage tier to realize the cost savings as quickly as possible and address any compliance issues that may arise later. Correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough data classification exercise to understand the sensitivity of customer data and consult with legal and compliance teams to ensure the proposed storage tier meets all regulatory requirements before proceeding with any migration. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for cost optimization with the long-term implications of data security and compliance, particularly within the context of IBM Cloud services. The stakeholders' focus on cost reduction, while understandable, must be navigated without compromising regulatory adherence or introducing unacceptable security risks. Careful judgment is required to identify solutions that meet both financial and non-financial objectives. Correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of data sensitivity and regulatory requirements before making any changes to data storage or processing. This aligns with the principle of security by design and privacy by design, which are fundamental to responsible cloud adoption. Specifically, it ensures that any proposed cost-saving measures, such as migrating to a different storage tier or region, are evaluated against compliance mandates like data residency laws and industry-specific regulations that might govern the type of data being handled. By involving compliance and security teams, the organization proactively mitigates risks and ensures that any solution is not only cost-effective, but also legally sound and secure. This proactive risk assessment is a cornerstone of ethical and professional cloud management. An incorrect approach that solely focuses on migrating to the cheapest storage tier without assessing data sensitivity or regulatory impact is professionally unacceptable. This failure represents a direct violation of data protection principles and potentially specific regulations that mandate how certain types of data must be stored and protected. For instance, if the data includes personally identifiable information, PI, or protected health information, FI, migrating it to a less secure or non-compliant tier could lead to severe data breaches, regulatory fines, and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, which involves implementing a new, cheaper service without a proper security review, ignores the critical need for due diligence. This oversight can introduce vulnerabilities that attackers can exploit, leading to unauthorized access and data compromise, thereby failing to uphold the duty of care owed to data subjects and the organization. The professional decision-making process for similar situation should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This begins with clearly defining the business objective, e.g., cost reduction. Next, it requires a comprehensive inventory and classification of the data involved, identifying its sensitivity and any applicable regulatory or compliance obligations. Following this, potential solutions should be evaluated not only on cost but also on their security posture, compliance capabilities, and impact on data governance. Engaging relevant stakeholders, including IT security, legal, compliance, and business units, is crucial throughout this process. Finally, a phased implementation with continuous monitoring and auditing should be employed to ensure ongoing adherence to both cost targets and regulatory requirements. Question 3. Implementation of a new customer relationship management (CRM) system on IBM Cloud involves migrating sensitive personal data. The project team is under pressure to complete the migration quickly to enable new marketing campaigns. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound approach to ensure customer data protection during this migration? Option A. Migrate only the non-sensitive customer data initially and postpone the migration of sensitive data until a later phase, without a clear plan for its secure handling or regulatory compliance. Option B. Proceed with the migration using the default security settings provided by IBM Cloud, assuming they are sufficient for all types of customer data, and address any specific data protection concerns after the migration is complete. Option C. Prioritize the rapid migration of all customer data to meet marketing deadlines, with a plan to retroactively implement security measures and address regulatory compliance once the system is live. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive data privacy and security assessment, identifying all sensitive data elements, their regulatory classifications, and implementing appropriate encryption, access controls, and anonymization techniques tailored to IBM Cloud services and relevant data protection laws before and during the migration. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive data privacy and security assessment, identifying all sensitive data elements, their regulatory classifications, and implementing appropriate encryption, access controls, and anonymization techniques tailored to IBM Cloud services and relevant data protection laws before and during the migration. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain data privacy and security when migrating sensitive customer data to a new cloud platform. The core tension lies between the business imperative to leverage new cloud capabilities for improved service delivery and the absolute requirement to protect customer information from unauthorized access or disclosure. Adhering to data protection regulations, the pressure to meet deadlines, and the potential for competitive disadvantage if the migration is delayed add further complexity, demanding careful judgment and a commitment to ethical principles over expediency. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a comprehensive data privacy and security assessment before and during the migration. This involves understanding the specific data types involved, their sensitivity, and the applicable regulatory requirements e.g. GDPR if customer data originates from or is processed within the EU, or relevant U.S. federal and state privacy laws if applicable. It mandates the implementation of robust encryption, access controls, and anonymization techniques as dictated by the data's nature and regulatory mandates. This approach aligns with the ethical duty of care to protect customer data and the legal obligations to comply with data protection laws. It ensures that the migration is conducted in a manner that safeguards confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data, thereby building and maintaining customer trust. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with the migration without a thorough understanding of the data's regulatory classification and the specific security controls required by IBM Cloud services. This failure to conduct due diligence constitutes a significant ethical lapse and a direct violation of data protection principles, potentially leading to regulatory penalties and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach is to assume that standard cloud security measures are sufficient without tailoring them to the specific data being migrated and the regulatory landscape. This oversight can leave sensitive data vulnerable, breaching the trust placed in the organization by its customers and contravening the principle of proportionality in data protection. Finally, prioritizing speed of migration over security and compliance, even with the intention of addressing issues post-migration, is a critical ethical and regulatory failure. This reactive approach is inherently risky and demonstrates a disregard for the fundamental responsibility to protect data throughout its lifecycle. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a dilemma should adopt a risk-based, compliance-first mindset. The decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying all applicable data protection regulations and IBM Cloud Service compliance certifications. 2. Conducting a detailed data inventory and classification to understand sensitivity and regulatory requirements. 3. Performing a thorough risk assessment of the migration process, identifying potential vulnerabilities. 4. Designing and implementing security controls, encryption, access management, anonymization that are commensurate with the identified risks and regulatory obligations. 5. Engaging legal and compliance teams early and often. 6. Establishing clear communication channels with stakeholders regarding risks and mitigation strategies. 7. Prioritizing data protection and regulatory adherence over aggressive timelines. Question 4. Risk assessment procedures indicate that sensitive customer data processed by the organization is subject to strict data residency requirements in a specific European Union member state. The organization is considering deploying a new application on IBM Cloud that will handle this data. Which of the following actions is the most appropriate to ensure compliance with data residency mandates? Option A. Choose an IBM Cloud region outside the European Union that offers lower operational costs and implement application-level encryption to mitigate potential data residency concerns. Option B. Select an IBM Cloud region within the European Union that is explicitly documented by IBM as supporting data residency for the specific services being used, and configure the application to exclusively utilize resources within that region. Option C. Deploy the application in the closest IBM Cloud region to the majority of the organization's users to optimize performance, assuming that data processing within the EU is generally compliant. Option D. Rely on IBM Cloud's global network infrastructure to automatically manage data placement, assuming that the provider handles all data residency concerns by default. Correct answer is B. Select an IBM Cloud region within the European Union that is explicitly documented by IBM as supporting data residency for the specific services being used, and configure the application to exclusively utilize resources within that region. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data residency and compliance within the IBM Cloud environment. The core difficulty lies in balancing the business need for global accessibility and performance with the stringent regulatory requirements for data localization. Organizations operating in regulated industries or across multiple jurisdictions must navigate complex and often conflicting demands. Failure to correctly identify and implement appropriate data residency controls can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The challenge is amplified by the dynamic nature of cloud services and evolving regulatory landscapes, requiring continuous vigilance and adaptation. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the specific data residency requirements applicable to the organization's operations and the data being processed. This necessitates consulting relevant regulatory frameworks and IBM Cloud service offerings to determine which regions offer the necessary data residency guarantees. Implementing controls to ensure data is stored and processed within the approved geographic boundaries, and documenting these controls represents best professional practice. This aligns with the principle of accountability and demonstrates due diligence in meeting compliance obligations. For instance, if the organization is subject to GDPR, ensuring personal data of EU citizens remains within the EU is paramount. IBM Cloud's regional offerings and service configurations must be leveraged to enforce these boundaries, supported by robust auditing mechanisms. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to assume that all IBM Cloud services automatically comply with specific data residency requirements without explicit configuration or verification. This overlooks the shared responsibility model in cloud computing, where the customer is responsible for configuring services to meet their specific compliance needs. Relying on generic assurances without validating against the actual data processing locations would be a significant regulatory failure, potentially violating data protection laws that mandate data localization. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize cost savings or performance benefits over data residency mandates. While these factors are important, they must not supersede legal and regulatory obligations. Choosing a cloud region solely based on lower costs or faster access, without confirming it meets data residency requirements, constitutes a direct violation of compliance frameworks and exposes the organization to severe penalties. A third incorrect approach is to delegate the entire responsibility for data residency compliance to the cloud provider without establishing internal oversight and validation processes. While IBM Cloud provides tools and infrastructure, the ultimate responsibility for ensuring compliance rests with the customer. Failing to implement internal checks and balances or to understand the specific configurations required demonstrates a lack of due diligence and can lead to non-compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals must adopt a proactive and informed approach to data residency. This involves 1. Understanding the regulatory landscape. Identify all applicable data residency laws and regulations based on the type of data and the geographic locations of data subjects. 2. Assessing IBM Cloud capabilities. Research IBM Cloud's regional offerings, service capabilities, and documentation related to data residency and compliance. 3. Implementing and verifying controls. Configure IBM Cloud services to enforce data residency policies and establish mechanisms for ongoing monitoring and auditing. 4. Maintaining documentation. Keep detailed records of data residency policies, configurations, and compliance checks. 5. Continuous review. Regularly review and update data residency strategies in response to changes in regulations or business requirements. Question 5. Benchmark analysis indicates that a critical business application needs to be deployed rapidly to capture a significant market opportunity. Senior management is pushing for an expedited timeline, suggesting that certain security configurations and compliance checks can be deferred until after the initial launch to meet the deadline. As a cloud architect, how should you approach this situation to uphold professional integrity and ensure responsible cloud adoption? Option A. Advocate for a phased deployment strategy that incorporates essential security configurations and compliance validations before the full application launch, even if it means a slight adjustment to the initial timeline. Option B. Implement the application with minimal security configurations, assuming that the business benefits of rapid deployment outweigh the immediate security risks. Option C. Proceed with the deployment as requested by senior management, prioritizing speed to market and planning to address security and compliance issues in a post-launch remediation phase. Option D. Agree to the expedited deployment without the required security and compliance measures, trusting that the application will not be targeted by malicious actors in the initial phase. The correct answer is A. Advocate for a phased deployment strategy that incorporates essential security configurations and compliance validations before the full application launch, even if it means a slight adjustment to the initial timeline. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in cloud adoption, where a business imperative, speed to market, conflicts with a foundational principle of responsible cloud usage, security, and compliance. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for a competitive advantage with the long-term risks associated with potentially compromising security controls. The pressure from senior management to accelerate deployment adds another layer of complexity, requiring the cloud architect to navigate organizational dynamics while upholding professional integrity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves advocating for a phased implementation that prioritizes security and compliance from the outset. This aligns with the principle of security by design and compliance by design, which are fundamental to responsible cloud governance. By proposing a plan that includes necessary security configurations and compliance checks before full deployment, the architect demonstrates a commitment to protecting sensitive data and meeting regulatory obligations. This approach upholds professional ethics by prioritizing the integrity and security of the client's systems and data over short-term gains. It also reflects best practices in cloud architecture, where robust security and compliance are not afterthoughts but integral components of the solution. Incorrect approaches analysis. Deploying the application without the required security configurations and compliance checks, despite knowing the risks, represents a significant ethical failure. This approach prioritizes speed over responsibility, potentially exposing the organization to data breaches, regulatory penalties, and reputational damage. It violates the professional duty to act with integrity and competence, as it knowingly disregards established security best practices and potential legal ramifications. Accepting the senior management's directive to bypass security and compliance measures without raising further concerns or proposing alternative solutions is also ethically problematic. While deference to management is often expected, it does not absolve a professional from their responsibility to advise on and uphold ethical and secure practices. This approach can be seen as complicity in a potentially harmful decision, failing to exercise professional judgment and advocate for responsible implementation. Suggesting a post-deployment remediation plan for security and compliance without a clear commitment or timeline for its execution is insufficient. While remediation is sometimes necessary, relying on it as a primary strategy for a new deployment is a risky gamble. It implies a willingness to operate in a non-compliant or insecure state for an indeterminate period, which is ethically questionable and professionally unsound. The focus should always be on proactive measures rather than reactive fixes for critical aspects like security and compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals in cloud architecture must adopt a decision-making framework that integrates ethical considerations with technical expertise. This involves 1. Identifying and understanding the core ethical principles and professional standards relevant to the situation, e.g., integrity, competence, responsibility. 2. Assessing the potential risks and consequences of different courses of action, including technical, security, compliance, and reputational impacts. 3. Communicating these risks clearly and effectively to stakeholders, including management, providing well-reasoned recommendations. 4. Advocating for solutions that align with best practices, regulatory requirements, and the long-term interests of the organization. 5. Documenting decisions and the rationale behind them, especially when deviating from standard procedures or when facing pressure to compromise on critical aspects. 6. Seeking guidance from professional bodies or senior colleagues when faced with complex ethical dilemmas. Question 6. The risk matrix shows a critical application experiencing intermittent performance degradation during peak user hours, leading to potential SLA breaches. The application runs on IBM Cloud virtual server instances. Which implementation approach best addresses this challenge while adhering to IBM Cloud's operational and cost efficiency principles? Option A. Focus solely on optimizing the application's internal caching mechanisms to handle increased load. Option B. Manually increase the number of virtual server instances during anticipated peak hours based on historical data. Option C. Provision a fixed, significantly higher number of virtual server instances to ensure constant availability. Option D. Configure auto-scaling for the virtual server instances to dynamically adjust capacity based on real-time demand. Correct answer is D. Configure auto-scaling for the virtual server instances to dynamically adjust capacity based on real-time demand. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in cloud environments where a critical application's performance is directly tied to its underlying infrastructure's availability and scalability. The professional challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for application uptime and performance with the long-term strategic goals of cost optimization and adherence to IBM Cloud best practices. Misjudging the appropriate scaling strategy can lead to either overspending on resources that are not fully utilized or under-provisioning, resulting in performance degradation and potential service disruptions, which can have significant business and reputational consequences. The need for a robust, scalable, and cost-effective solution requires careful consideration of the application's workload patterns and the capabilities of IBM Cloud services. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging IBM Cloud's auto-scaling capabilities for the virtual server instances hosting the critical application. This aligns with best professional practices because it directly addresses the fluctuating demands of the application. Auto-scaling ensures that the application has sufficient resources during peak loads, maintaining performance and availability, thereby meeting service level agreements, SLAs. Crucially, it also scales down resources during periods of low demand, optimizing costs by avoiding the expense of idle infrastructure. This dynamic adjustment is a core tenet of efficient cloud resource management and demonstrates a proactive approach to operational excellence and financial stewardship within the IBM cloud framework. Incorrect approach is analysis. Manually adjusting the number of virtual server instances based on periodic, non-real-time monitoring is professionally unacceptable. This approach is reactive rather than proactive, leading to delayed responses to performance issues and potential service disruptions. It also fails to optimize costs effectively, as resources are likely to be over-provisioned for extended periods to buffer against unforeseen spikes, or under-provisioned during critical times due to slow manual intervention. This can lead to breaches of SLAs and inefficient use of cloud spend, which are key considerations in professional cloud management. Implementing a fixed, high number of virtual server instances at all times, regardless of actual demand, is also professionally unsound. While this might guarantee uptime, it represents a significant failure in cost optimization. It leads to substantial overspending on resources that are frequently underutilized, directly contradicting the economic benefits of cloud computing. This approach demonstrates a lack of understanding of dynamic workload management and efficient resource allocation, which are fundamental to professional cloud operations. Relying solely on the application's internal caching mechanisms without considering infrastructure scaling is an incomplete solution. While caching improves application performance by reducing database load, it does not address underlying infrastructure limitations. If the application experiences a surge in user requests that overwhelms the server capacity, even with effective caching, performance will degrade and the application may become unresponsive. This approach neglects the critical interplay between application performance and infrastructure scalability, representing a failure to implement a holistic cloud solution. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes understanding the application's workload characteristics and performance requirements. This involves analyzing historical usage data, identifying peak and off-peak periods, and understanding the criticality of the application. The next step is to evaluate IBM cloud services that can dynamically adapt to these demands, such as auto-scaling groups for virtual servers or managed Kubernetes services with horizontal pod auto-scaling. Cost implications and SLA commitments must be weighed against the technical capabilities of each solution. The chosen approach should demonstrate a balance between ensuring application availability and performance, optimizing resource utilization, and managing costs effectively, all within the guidelines and best practices of the IBM Cloud Platform. Question 7. Investigation of the potential consequences of migrating a critical customer data management application to IBM Cloud. A comprehensive impact assessment should prioritize which of the following. Option A. A rapid deployment strategy focused on minimizing downtime and immediately realizing the benefits of cloud-native features. Option B. Detailed analysis of the application's performance metrics and resource utilization to ensure optimal cost efficiency in the IBM cloud environment. Option C. A review of the application's source code to identify opportunities for refactoring and modernization before migration. Option D. A thorough evaluation of the application's integration with existing on-premises systems, potential data security and privacy implications, and the alignment with current regulatory compliance requirements. The correct answer is D. A thorough evaluation of the application's integration with existing on-premises systems, potential data security and privacy implications, and the alignment with current regulatory compliance requirements. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud adoption, balancing the desire for rapid innovation with the imperative to understand and mitigate potential risks. The challenge lies in the inherent uncertainty of cloud environments and the need to proactively identify and address impacts before they materialize. A rushed or incomplete impact assessment can lead to unforeseen operational disruptions, security vulnerabilities, or compliance violations, all of which carry significant business and reputational costs. The pressure to deliver quickly can tempt teams to bypass thorough assessment, making professional judgment and adherence to established processes critical. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive impact assessment that considers various facets of the proposed cloud solution. This includes evaluating potential effects on existing infrastructure, data security and privacy, application performance, operational workflows, and compliance obligations. By engaging relevant stakeholders early, documenting findings, and developing mitigation strategies, this approach ensures that potential risks are identified and addressed proactively. This aligns with best practices in IT governance and risk management, which emphasize a structured and evidence-based approach to decision-making, thereby minimizing unforeseen negative consequences and ensuring responsible cloud adoption. Incorrect approaches analysis. Focusing solely on the technical feasibility of migrating a specific application without considering its broader impact on the organization's IT ecosystem is a significant failure. This narrow perspective neglects potential interdependencies, security implications, and operational disruptions that could arise from the migration. Represents a failure to conduct a holistic impact assessment, potentially leading to unexpected system failures or security breaches. Prioritizing cost savings above all other considerations, including security, compliance, and operational stability, is another critical failure. While cost is an important factor, it should not supersede fundamental requirements for a secure and reliable cloud environment. This approach risks compromising data integrity, exposing sensitive information, or violating regulatory mandates, leading to severe financial and legal repercussions. Adopting a move fast and break things mentality without a structured impact assessment is inherently risky. This approach disregards the potential for unintended consequences and the need for due diligence. It fails to identify and mitigate risks before they manifest, increasing the likelihood of operational failures, security incidents, and compliance issues, which can be far more costly to rectify than proactive assessment. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach cloud adoption initiatives with a mindset of informed risk management. This involves establishing a clear process for impact assessment that is integrated into the project lifecycle. Key steps include defining the scope of the assessment, identifying potential impacts across technical, security, operational, and compliance domains, engaging relevant subject matter experts and stakeholders, documenting findings and proposed mitigation strategies, and obtaining necessary approvals before proceeding. This structured approach ensures that decisions are made based on a thorough understanding of potential consequences, promoting responsible and sustainable cloud adoption. Question 8. What factors determine the appropriate depth and scope of a risk assessment for a new IBM cloud service deployment, considering the need for agility and adherence to foundational security principles? Option A. The urgency of the business requirement for the new service and the cost of implementing additional security measures. Option B. The perceived complexity of the IBM cloud service and the availability of pre-built IBM security templates. Option C. The number of developers involved in the service's creation and the general industry trend towards cloud adoption. Option D. The sensitivity and regulatory classification of the data to be processed, the potential impact of a security breach on business operations and customer trust, and the specific compliance obligations relevant to the service's intended use. The correct answer is D. The sensitivity and regulatory classification of the data to be processed, the potential impact of a security breach on business operations and customer trust, and the specific compliance obligations relevant to the service's intended use. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for rapid deployment of new IBM cloud services with the imperative to conduct thorough risk assessments. The pressure to innovate and deliver quickly can lead to shortcuts in security and compliance, which are critical for maintaining data integrity and meeting regulatory obligations. Careful judgment is required to ensure that risk assessment is not an afterthought but an integral part of the development lifecycle. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it embeds risk assessment into the early stages of IBM cloud service development. This proactive stance allows for the identification and mitigation of potential risks before they become costly problems or lead to regulatory noncompliance. By integrating risk assessment with the design and architecture phases, organizations can build security and compliance into the foundation of their cloud services, aligning with the principles of security by design and privacy by design. This aligns with the general principles of responsible cloud adoption and governance, which are implicitly expected in any regulated environment, even if specific regulations are not explicitly detailed for this exam. An incorrect approach that prioritizes deployment speed over comprehensive risk assessment is professionally unacceptable. This failure can lead to significant regulatory breaches, data compromise, and reputational damage. For instance, neglecting to assess the data residency requirements of a new service could result in violations of data protection laws, leading to fines and legal action. Similarly, overlooking potential vulnerabilities in the application programming interfaces, APIs, used by the service could expose sensitive data to unauthorized access, a clear ethical and regulatory failure. Another incorrect approach might involve relying solely on IBM's default security configurations, without a specific assessment of the organization's unique threat landscape and compliance needs. This can leave critical gaps in protection, as generic configurations may not address specific industry regulations or organizational policies. The professional reasoning framework for such situations involves a structured approach to risk management. This includes 1. Identifying all potential risks associated with the new IBM cloud service, considering technical, operational, and compliance aspects. 2. Analyzing the likelihood and impact of each identified risk. 3. Evaluating existing controls and determining if they are sufficient. 4. Implementing new controls or modifying existing ones to mitigate unacceptable risks. 5. Regularly monitoring and reviewing the effectiveness of controls and reassessing risks as the service evolves. This iterative process ensures that risk management remains a continuous activity, not a one-time event. Question 9. When evaluating the optimal IBM cloud service for a new customer-facing web application that is expected to experience significant but unpredictable traffic spikes, which approach best balances cost, performance, and scalability? Option A. Choosing a virtual server instance with a fixed, high CPU and RAM configuration to proactively handle any potential traffic surge. Option B. Opting for the cheapest available virtual server instance and planning to manually upgrade resources only when performance issues are reported. Option C. Selecting a managed database service with auto-scaling capabilities and a robust content delivery network, CDN, integrated with a serverless compute offering. Option D. Deploying the application on a bare metal server to ensure maximum control and dedicated resources, regardless of current traffic levels. The correct answer is C. Selecting a managed database service with auto-scaling capabilities and a robust content delivery network, CDN, integrated with a serverless compute offering. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in selecting the most appropriate IBM cloud service for a specific workload, requiring a deep understanding of service capabilities and their alignment with business objectives, rather than just technical features. The challenge lies in balancing cost-effectiveness, performance, scalability, and security requirements within the context of IBM Cloud's diverse offerings. Careful judgment is needed to avoid over-provisioning or under-provisioning resources, which can lead to unnecessary expenses or performance bottlenecks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive understanding of the workload's characteristics and business needs before making a service selection. This ensures that the chosen IBM cloud service is not only technically suitable, but also aligns with strategic goals, such as optimizing operational costs, enhancing application performance, and meeting compliance mandates. This methodical, requirements-driven selection process is crucial for delivering value and mitigating risks. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the lowest initial cost without considering long-term operational expenses, scalability, or performance implications is professionally unacceptable. This can lead to hidden costs, performance degradation, and the need for costly re-architecting later. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes the most feature-rich service without a clear need for those advanced capabilities results in unnecessary complexity and expense, failing to demonstrate efficient resource management. Finally, an approach that ignores potential security and compliance implications of a chosen service, focusing only on ease of deployment, poses significant regulatory and ethical risks, potentially leading to data breaches or non-compliance. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough assessment of workload requirements, including performance metrics, data volume, user concurrency, security policies, and regulatory obligations. This should be followed by an evaluation of IBM cloud services that best map to these requirements, considering factors like pricing models, scalability options, integration capabilities, and managed services. A comparative analysis of the shortlisted services, focusing on total cost of ownership and alignment with business objectives, should then guide the final selection. Question 10. The evaluation methodology shows a company planning to migrate its sensitive customer data from an on-premises data center to IBM Cloud. The company operates in a highly regulated industry and must adhere to strict data privacy laws. Which of the following strategies best ensures compliance and security during and after the migration? Option A. Migrate the data without implementing any additional security measures beyond what is provided by default, as the company trusts IBM Cloud's inherent security capabilities. Option B. Implement IBM Cloud's robust encryption services for data at rest, and in transit, configure granular access controls based on the principle of least privilege, and establish comprehensive logging and auditing mechanisms to monitor data access and system activity. Option C. Focus primarily on the cost savings and performance benefits of the cloud migration, deferring detailed security and compliance reviews until after the migration is fully completed. Option D. Rely solely on IBM Cloud's default security configurations, assuming the provider has implemented all necessary measures to meet the company's specific regulatory obligations. Correct answer is B. Implement IBM Cloud's robust encryption services for data at rest, and in transit, configure granular access controls based on the principle of least privilege, and establish comprehensive logging and auditing mechanisms to monitor data access and system activity. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a scenario where a company is migrating its on-premises database to IBM Cloud. The challenge lies in ensuring data security and compliance with relevant regulations during this migration. Professionals must balance the benefits of cloud adoption with the imperative to protect sensitive data and adhere to legal frameworks. This requires a thorough understanding of IBM Cloud security features and how they align with regulatory requirements. The correct approach involves leveraging IBM Cloud's built-in security services, such as encryption at rest and in transit, access control mechanisms, and auditing capabilities, to meet compliance obligations. This demonstrates best professional practice by proactively addressing security and compliance needs within the cloud environment. It aligns with the principle of security by design and ensures that data protection is integrated from the outset of the migration. An incorrect approach would be to assume that the cloud provider, IBM Cloud, is solely responsible for all security and compliance. This fails to acknowledge the shared responsibility model in cloud computing, where the customer also has significant obligations. Another incorrect approach is to neglect the configuration of security features, such as enabling encryption or implementing robust access controls, relying instead on default settings. This can lead to vulnerabilities and non-compliance. A third incorrect approach is to overlook the need for regular security audits and monitoring of the cloud environment, which is crucial for detecting and responding to potential threats and ensuring ongoing compliance. Professionals should employ a decision-making process that begins with identifying all applicable regulatory requirements. This should be followed by an assessment of IBM Cloud security features and services that can address these requirements. A risk assessment should then be conducted to understand potential threats and vulnerabilities. Finally, a comprehensive security and compliance plan should be developed and implemented, including ongoing monitoring and regular reviews. Question 11. The efficiency study reveals that a particular IBM Cloud region has significantly lower operational costs for storing and processing sensitive customer data. The team is considering migrating this data to the cheaper region to reduce expenditure. However, the study also highlights that the current region has more stringent data residency controls. What is the most appropriate course of action to balance cost efficiency with regulatory compliance and data security? Option A. Disable enhanced security logging in the current region to reduce storage costs associated with log data, thereby making the overall cost of the current region more competitive. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to evaluate the data residency requirements and security implications of the lower-cost region before any migration, ensuring compliance with relevant regulations and IBM Cloud security best practices. Option C. Consolidate administrative credentials for the sensitive data across multiple team members to simplify access and management in the new, lower-cost region. Option D. Immediately migrate the sensitive customer data to the lower-cost region to realize immediate cost savings, as the efficiency study indicates a clear financial benefit. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment to evaluate the data residency requirements and security implications of the lower-cost region before any migration, ensuring compliance with relevant regulations and IBM cloud security best practices. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between optimizing resource utilization for cost savings and ensuring the integrity and security of sensitive data within a cloud environment. The need to balance these competing demands requires careful consideration of IBM cloud security controls and compliance posture, particularly concerning data residency and access management. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to the IBM Cloud v2 regulatory framework and its associated security guidelines. Specifically, it acknowledges the importance of data sovereignty and the need to maintain data within designated geographical boundaries as per potential regulatory requirements, even if not explicitly stated in the exam syllabus. The principle of data residency is a core compliance concern in cloud. Furthermore, it emphasizes the principle of least privilege and robust access control mechanisms, ensuring that only authorized personnel can access sensitive data, thereby mitigating risks of unauthorized disclosure or modification. This aligns with general cloud security best practices and the implicit requirements of a foundational cloud certification like C1000-083, which expects an understanding of secure cloud operations. An incorrect approach that involves migrating sensitive data to a region with lower operational costs without a thorough assessment of data residency regulations and the security implications of that region would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would violate the principle of due diligence and could lead to non-compliance with data protection laws, resulting in significant legal and financial penalties. Another incorrect approach, such as disabling security logging to reduce storage costs, would be a critical ethical and regulatory failure. Security logs are vital for auditing, incident response, and demonstrating compliance. Their removal would create blind spots, hinder investigation, and directly contravene security best practices and likely regulatory mandates for auditability. Finally, an approach that involves sharing administrative credentials to simplify access would be a severe security and ethical lapse, directly violating principles of access control and accountability, and exposing the organization to significant risks of unauthorized actions and data breaches. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a risk-based assessment. This includes identifying sensitive data, understanding applicable regulations, even if implied by the exam scope, evaluating the security features and compliance certifications of different IBM cloud regions, and implementing robust access control policies. Professionals must always prioritize security and compliance over cost savings when sensitive data is involved, and any proposed changes should undergo a formal risk assessment and approval process. Question 12. Cost-benefit analysis shows that adopting a new IBM cloud-managed database service could significantly reduce operational expenses and improve application performance. However, the organization handles sensitive customer data subject to strict data residency and privacy regulations. Which of the following actions is the most critical first step to ensure responsible adoption? Option A. Immediately proceed with migrating the sensitive customer data to the new IBM cloud service to realize the projected cost savings and performance benefits as quickly as possible. Option B. Rely solely on IBM's documentation and assurances regarding the compliance of their managed database service without independent verification. Option C. Conduct a thorough impact assessment to identify how the IBM Cloud Services data handling, security features, and compliance certifications align with the organization's regulatory obligations and data residency requirements. Option D. Prioritize the performance improvements and cost reductions, and address any potential compliance issues only if they are explicitly raised by regulatory bodies after the service is in production. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough impact assessment to identify how the IBM Cloud Services data handling, security features, and compliance certifications align with the organization's regulatory obligations and data residency requirements. Explanation: This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud adoption, balancing the perceived benefits of a new service with the potential risks and compliance obligations. The professional is tasked with evaluating the impact of a new IBM cloud service, which requires a thorough understanding of the organization's existing regulatory landscape and the specific requirements of the chosen IBM cloud service. The challenge lies in ensuring that the adoption of this service does not inadvertently lead to non-compliance with relevant regulations, which could result in significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that meticulously maps the proposed IBM cloud services functionalities and data handling capabilities against the organization's current compliance posture and any applicable regulatory mandates. This includes identifying potential data residency issues, security control gaps, and the need for updated policies and procedures. By proactively identifying and mitigating these risks, the organization can ensure a compliant and secure cloud deployment, aligning with the principles of responsible data stewardship and regulatory adherence. This aligns with the general principles of risk management and due diligence expected in any technology adoption, particularly within regulated industries. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the adoption without a thorough assessment, assuming that the IBM cloud service inherently meets all compliance needs. This overlooks the shared responsibility model in cloud computing and the organization's ultimate accountability for its data and operations. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on the cost savings or performance improvements highlighted in the initial cost-benefit analysis, neglecting the critical compliance and security implications. This demonstrates a failure to prioritize regulatory obligations and ethical considerations, potentially leading to severe breaches of data privacy laws and industry-specific regulations. A third incorrect approach might be to delegate the entire impact assessment to the cloud provider without independent verification, abdicating the organization's responsibility for due diligence. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with clearly defining the scope of the impact assessment. This involves identifying all relevant regulatory frameworks, internal policies, and security requirements. The next step is to gather detailed information about the proposed IBM cloud service, focusing on its data handling, security features, and compliance certifications. This information should then be rigorously compared against the organization's requirements. Any identified gaps or potential risks must be documented, and mitigation strategies developed and implemented before proceeding with adoption. Continuous monitoring and periodic reassessment are also crucial to maintain compliance over time. Question 13. Strategic planning requires a thorough understanding of IBM cloud service capabilities to ensure compliance with data protection regulations when deploying sensitive workloads. Which of the following approaches best aligns with this principle for a workload processing personally identifiable information, PI subject to strict privacy laws? Option A. Prioritize an IBM cloud service known for its high performance and scalability, with the understanding that security configurations can be manually adjusted post-deployment. Option B. Choose the most cost-effective IBM cloud service that provides basic data storage and retrieval functionalities, assuming standard security measures are sufficient. Option C. Select an IBM cloud service that offers robust encryption, comprehensive audit logging, and has achieved relevant industry compliance certifications for data privacy. Option D. Opt for an IBM cloud service with a broad feature set, focusing on its general-purpose capabilities, and address specific compliance needs through custom application-level security. The correct answer is C. Select an IBM cloud service that offers robust encryption, comprehensive audit logging, and has achieved relevant industry compliance certifications for data privacy. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in selecting the most appropriate IBM cloud service for a sensitive data processing workload. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for robust security and compliance with the operational requirements of the application. Misjudging the service capabilities or compliance posture can lead to significant regulatory penalties, data breaches, and reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to align technical solutions with stringent data protection mandates. Correct approach analysis. Choosing a service that explicitly offers advanced security features, such as granular access controls, encryption at rest and in transit, and comprehensive audit logging, is paramount. Furthermore, verifying that the chosen service meets specific compliance certifications relevant to the data's sensitivity, e.g., HIPAA, GDPR, PCI DSS, depending on the data type and jurisdiction, is a best professional practice. This approach ensures that the technical implementation directly supports the organization's legal and ethical obligations for data privacy and security, minimizing risk and demonstrating due diligence. Incorrect approach is analysis. Selecting a service based solely on cost or ease of deployment without a thorough security and compliance review is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach disregards the fundamental responsibility to protect sensitive data, potentially violating data protection laws and leading to severe penalties. Opting for a service that offers basic security features but lacks specific compliance attestations for the type of data being processed is also professionally unacceptable. It creates a compliance gap, exposing the organization to risks of non-compliance and data breaches. Prioritizing performance over security without a documented risk assessment and mitigation strategy is another failure. While performance is important, it should not come at the expense of data integrity and confidentiality, which are legally mandated. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach. This involves first identifying the sensitivity and regulatory requirements of the data. Then, they should evaluate potential IBM cloud services against these requirements, focusing on security controls, compliance certifications, and data governance capabilities. A comparative analysis of services, considering their suitability for the specific workload and regulatory landscape, is crucial. Documenting the decision-making process, including the rationale for selecting a particular service and any identified risks and mitigation strategies, is essential for accountability and auditability. Question 14. The assessment process reveals that a new project requires a cloud-based data storage solution. The project team is under pressure to launch quickly and has identified two potential solutions. One that is significantly cheaper but has limited documentation on its security certifications, and another that is more expensive but comes with comprehensive compliance attestations and robust security features. The team is leaning towards the cheaper option to meet the tight deadline. What is the most professional approach to decision-making in this scenario? Option A. Conduct a thorough evaluation of both solutions against predefined criteria, including security, compliance, total cost of ownership, and operational impact, before making a recommendation. Option B. Accept the recommendation of the primary cloud service provider's sales representative for the cheaper solution without further independent verification. Option C. Prioritize the solution that can be implemented the fastest, even if it means compromising on some security and compliance aspects initially. Option D. Immediately select the cheaper solution to meet the project deadline, assuming that security and compliance can be addressed later if issues arise. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough evaluation of both solutions against predefined criteria, including security, compliance, total cost of ownership, and operational impact, before making a recommendation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud adoption, balancing the desire for rapid innovation and cost optimization with the imperative to adhere to established governance and compliance frameworks. The pressure to deliver new features quickly can lead to overlooking critical decision-making steps, potentially exposing the organization to risks. The challenge lies in ensuring that the decision-making process is robust, transparent, and aligned with both business objectives and regulatory requirements, even when faced with time constraints. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding the problem, identifying potential solutions, evaluating them against defined criteria, and then making an informed choice. This aligns with best professional practices in IT governance and cloud management. Specifically, it emphasizes a systematic evaluation of options based on factors like security, compliance, cost, performance, and operational impact. This methodical process ensures that decisions are not made in a vacuum, but are grounded in a comprehensive understanding of the implications. From a regulatory perspective, this approach supports auditability and accountability, demonstrating due diligence in managing cloud resources and mitigating risks. It fosters a culture of responsible cloud adoption, where technical feasibility is considered alongside broader organizational and compliance mandates. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately select the solution that appears to offer the lowest upfront cost without a thorough evaluation of its long-term implications, including potential hidden costs, security vulnerabilities, or compliance gaps. This violates the principle of responsible financial management and risk assessment, potentially leading to greater expenses and regulatory penalties down the line. It fails to consider the total cost of ownership and the potential for non-compliance, which is a significant ethical and professional failing. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize the solution that can be implemented the fastest, without adequate consideration for its suitability, security, or integration with existing systems. This haste can lead to technical debt, security breaches, and operational inefficiencies, all of which can have severe regulatory and financial consequences. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for established best practices in system design and deployment. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on the recommendations of a single vendor or team without independent verification or cross-functional input. This can lead to biased decision-making, where the chosen solution may not be the best fit for the organization's overall needs or may not meet all compliance requirements. It bypasses essential checks and balances, increasing the risk of selecting an inappropriate or non-compliant solution. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that includes 1. Problem definition. Clearly articulate the business need or technical challenge. 2. Information gathering. Collect relevant data on potential solutions, including technical specifications, cost models, security features, and compliance certifications. 3. Criteria development. Establish clear, measurable criteria for evaluating solutions, aligned with organizational policies, security standards, and regulatory obligations. 4. Option evaluation. Systematically assess each potential solution against the defined criteria, considering both quantitative and qualitative factors. 5. Risk assessment. Identify and evaluate potential risks associated with each option, including security, compliance, operational, and financial risks. 6. Decision and justification. Select the best option based on the evaluation and clearly document the rationale behind the decision. 7. Implementation and monitoring. Plan and execute the implementation, and continuously monitor performance and compliance. This structured approach ensures that decisions are well-informed, defensible, and aligned with the organization's strategic goals and regulatory responsibilities. Question 15. Process analysis reveals that a new IBM cloud service offering advanced data analytics capabilities is being considered for adoption. Before proceeding with a full implementation, what is the most critical step to ensure compliance and operational integrity? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the service's integration with existing systems, data handling procedures, security controls, and alignment with all applicable regulatory requirements. Option B. Deploy the service immediately to leverage its advanced analytics features and address business needs, with a plan to address any compliance or operational issues that arise post-implementation. Option C. Rely solely on the IBM Cloud Service's marketing documentation and vendor assurances regarding its security and compliance features, assuming it meets all organizational needs. Option D. Prioritize the cost savings associated with the new IBM Cloud Service, proceeding with adoption if the financial benefits outweigh the initial implementation expenses, regardless of other considerations. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the service's integration with existing systems, data handling procedures, security controls, and alignment with all applicable regulatory requirements. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud adoption, balancing the potential benefits of a new IBM cloud service with the need to understand and mitigate its impact on existing operational processes and compliance obligations. The challenge lies in the inherent uncertainty of a new service's integration and the potential for unforeseen consequences on data handling, security, and regulatory adherence. A thorough impact assessment is crucial to avoid costly rework, security breaches, or non-compliance penalties. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive impact assessment. This process should begin with identifying all relevant stakeholders, including IT operations, security teams, legal/compliance officers, and business unit representatives. It It requires a detailed understanding of the proposed IBM Cloud Services functionalities, data flows, security controls, and any specific compliance certifications it holds. The assessment should then map these aspects against existing organizational policies, regulatory requirements, e.g., data privacy laws, industry-specific regulations relevant to the exam's jurisdiction, and current operational workflows. Documenting potential risks, dependencies, and required changes to infrastructure, applications, and processes is paramount. This proactive, structured approach ensures that potential issues are identified and addressed before deployment, aligning with best practices for responsible cloud adoption and regulatory due diligence. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding with deployment without a formal impact assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for due diligence and a failure to adequately protect sensitive data or meet compliance obligations. This approach risks violating data privacy regulations by not understanding how data will be processed or stored in the new service. It also bypasses essential security reviews, potentially exposing the organization to vulnerabilities and breaches, which could lead to severe financial penalties and reputational damage. Adopting the service based solely on vendor claims without independent verification or internal assessment is another critical failure. While IBM cloud services are generally robust, relying solely on marketing materials or vendor assurances without understanding how the service integrates with the organization's specific environment and compliance framework is negligent. This can lead to misinterpretations of security capabilities or data handling practices, resulting in non-compliance with internal policies or external regulations. Focusing only on cost savings without considering operational or security implications is a common but flawed approach. While cost efficiency is a key driver for cloud adoption, it cannot be the sole determinant. Ignoring the potential impact on existing systems, data security, and regulatory compliance can lead to far greater long-term costs associated with remediation, breaches, or fines. This approach fails to uphold the organization's fiduciary duty to manage risks effectively and protect its assets and data. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves identifying potential risks associated with any new technology adoption, assessing their likelihood and impact, and developing mitigation strategies. For cloud services, this framework necessitates a thorough impact assessment that considers technical, operational, security, and compliance aspects. Engaging all relevant stakeholders early in the process ensures a holistic understanding of potential challenges and facilitates informed decision-making. Prioritizing compliance and security alongside business objectives is essential for responsible and sustainable technology adoption. Question 16. Strategic planning requires a thorough evaluation of cloud service offerings when migrating sensitive customer data to IBM Cloud. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with data protection regulations and upholds professional responsibility? Option A. Selecting the most cost-effective IBM cloud service to minimize migration expenses, assuming it will inherently meet all regulatory needs. Option B. Relying exclusively on IBM's general marketing claims about security and compliance without conducting an independent review of specific service capabilities. Option C. Proactively assessing IBM cloud services for their alignment with specific data protection requirements, understanding the shared responsibility model, and verifying security certifications and data residency options. Option D. Migrating sensitive customer data to IBM Cloud without a detailed understanding of the shared responsibility model, assuming IBM handles all compliance aspects. Correct answer is C. Proactively assessing IBM cloud services for their alignment with specific data protection requirements, understanding the shared responsibility model, and verifying security certifications and data residency options. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud adoption where a company needs to migrate sensitive customer data to IBM Cloud. The professional challenge lies in balancing the benefits of cloud scalability and cost efficiency with the stringent regulatory obligations surrounding data privacy and security. The need for careful judgment arises from the potential for significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust if compliance is not maintained. The specific regulatory framework for this exam C1000-083 Foundations of IBM Cloud v2 implies a focus on general cloud best practices and foundational knowledge, which would encompass understanding data protection principles relevant to cloud environments. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment of IBM cloud services against the specific data protection requirements mandated by relevant regulations, e.g., GDPR if applicable, or general data privacy principles. This includes understanding IBM Cloud security certifications, data residency options, encryption capabilities, and access control mechanisms. It also necessitates a clear understanding of the shared responsibility model in cloud computing, where both IBM and the customer have defined roles in ensuring data security and compliance. By proactively identifying and addressing these factors, the company can ensure that its chosen IBM cloud services meet its compliance obligations, thereby representing best professional practice. This aligns with the foundational understanding of cloud security and governance expected in the C1000-083 exam. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to assume that IBM Cloud, by default, meets all regulatory requirements for sensitive customer data without independent verification. This overlooks the shared responsibility model and the specific nature of the data being migrated. Regulatory failure here stems from a lack of due diligence, potentially leading to noncompliance with data protection laws. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize cost savings above all else, selecting the cheapest IBM cloud service without adequately assessing its security and compliance features. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it demonstrates a disregard for data protection obligations, which can have severe legal consequences. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on IBM's marketing materials without conducting an independent technical and legal review of the chosen service's compliance capabilities. This is professionally unsound, as it fails to account for the nuances of specific regulatory requirements and the shared responsibility model, potentially leading to a misinterpretation of compliance assurances. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to cloud migration. This involves 1. Understanding the data. Classify the data based on its sensitivity and regulatory requirements. 2. Identifying relevant regulations. Determine all applicable data protection and privacy laws. 3. Evaluating cloud provider capabilities. Thoroughly research and verify IBM Cloud Services compliance features, security certification, and data handling policies. 4. Understanding the shared responsibility model. Clearly define responsibilities for security and compliance between the organization and IBM Cloud. 5. Implementing appropriate controls. Deploy necessary security measures, encryption, and access controls. 6. Ongoing monitoring and auditing. Continuously assess compliance posture and adapt to evolving regulations and threats. Question 17. Quality control measures reveal that a financial services organization is storing sensitive customer data within IBM Cloud. The organization operates under strict data sovereignty laws that mandate all customer data must reside within the European Union. The current deployment utilizes a global IBM Cloud service without explicit regional data residency configuration. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with the data sovereignty laws? Option A. Assume that the global IBM Cloud service, due to its nature, inherently adheres to all data sovereignty regulations for all its users. Option B. Implement additional encryption layers on the data, believing this negates the need for strict geographical data residency. Option C. Reconfigure the IBM Cloud service to explicitly designate European Union regions for data storage and processing, ensuring data remains within the mandated geographical boundaries. Option D. Prioritize the cost-effectiveness and performance benefits of the global deployment and rely on contractual assurances from IBM for compliance. The correct answer is C. Reconfigure the IBM Cloud service to explicitly designate European Union regions for data storage and processing, ensuring data remains within the mandated geographical boundaries. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data residency and compliance within the IBM Cloud environment. The core difficulty lies in balancing the business need for efficient data processing and global accessibility with the stringent regulatory requirements of data sovereignty and privacy. Organizations operating in regulated industries or across multiple jurisdictions must navigate complex legal landscapes, where noncompliance can lead to severe financial penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. The pressure to deliver services quickly can sometimes lead to overlooking critical compliance considerations, making a thorough understanding of IBM Cloud's capabilities and regulatory frameworks essential. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging IBM Cloud's data residency options and understanding the implications of data transfer. Specifically, utilizing IBM Cloud services that allow for the explicit designation of data storage regions, e.g., IBM Cloud Kubernetes service with regional deployments or specific database services with regional configurations, directly addresses data sovereignty requirements. This approach ensures that sensitive data remains within the legally mandated geographical boundaries, thereby adhering to regulations like GDPR or similar data protection laws that dictate where personal data can be processed and stored. It demonstrates a proactive and compliant strategy by aligning technical implementation with legal obligations. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to assume that all IBM Cloud services inherently comply with all data residency regulations without explicit configuration. This overlooks the fact that many cloud services are designed for global distribution by default, and without specific regional controls, data might be processed or stored outside of permitted jurisdictions. This failure constitutes a direct regulatory violation and an ethical lapse in due diligence. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize cost savings or performance benefits by using a global, unconstrained deployment model, even when sensitive data is involved. This demonstrates a disregard for legal and ethical obligations concerning data privacy and sovereignty. Such a decision would likely lead to noncompliance with data protection laws, exposing the organization to significant risks. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on contractual agreements with IBM without verifying the technical implementation of data residency controls. While contracts are important, they do not absolve the organization of its responsibility to ensure that the deployed services actually meet the specified compliance requirements. Failure to verify the technical implementation means the organization cannot guarantee compliance, leading to potential regulatory breaches. Professional reasoning. Professionals must adopt a risk-based approach to cloud adoption, prioritizing compliance from the outset. This involves a thorough understanding of the data being handled, the applicable regulatory frameworks, and the specific capabilities of the cloud services being used. Before deploying any service, especially those handling sensitive data, professionals should 1. Identify all relevant data residency and privacy regulations applicable to the data and the organization's operating regions. 2. Consult IBM Cloud documentation to understand the data residency options and regional capabilities of the chosen services. 3. Configure services to explicitly adhere to data residency requirements, selecting appropriate regions for data storage and processing. 4. Implement robust monitoring and auditing mechanisms to ensure ongoing compliance. 5. Conduct regular reviews of cloud configurations and regulatory landscapes to adapt to changes. Question 18. Cost-benefit analysis shows that migrating to IBM Cloud offers significant operational efficiencies and potential cost reductions, but the organization has not yet conducted a detailed assessment of how this migration will impact its adherence to data privacy regulations and data residency requirements. Which of the following represents the most responsible and compliant approach to proceeding with the migration? Option A. Assume that IBM Cloud's general compliance certifications are sufficient and proceed with the migration, relying on the vendor to manage all regulatory adherence. Option B. Prioritize the cost-saving aspects of the migration and defer any detailed compliance review until after the initial deployment phase is complete. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment, focusing on data privacy, security, and regulatory compliance, before finalizing the migration plan and selecting specific IBM Cloud services. Option D. Proceed with the migration immediately to capitalize on the identified efficiencies and address any compliance issues that arise post-deployment. Correct answer is D. Proceed with the migration immediately to capitalize on the identified efficiencies and address any compliance issues that arise post-deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud adoption, balancing the perceived benefits of a new technology with the potential risks and compliance obligations. The organization is facing pressure to innovate and improve efficiency, but without a thorough impact assessment. They risk overlooking critical regulatory requirements and ethical considerations. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the pursuit of technological advancement does not compromise data privacy, security, or adherence to the specific regulatory framework governing their operations. The move fast and break things mentality, while sometimes associated with rapid innovation, is fundamentally at odds with the principles of responsible and compliant technology deployment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that proactively identifies and mitigates potential risks before cloud adoption. This aligns with the principles of responsible data stewardship and regulatory compliance. Specifically, it necessitates understanding how IBM cloud services will handle sensitive data, ensuring that data residency requirements are met, and verifying that the chosen services comply with relevant data protection laws. This proactive approach is best professional practice because it embeds compliance and risk management into the project lifecycle from the outset, rather than treating them as afterthoughts. It demonstrates a commitment to ethical data handling and adherence to the regulatory framework, which is paramount in maintaining trust and avoiding legal repercussions. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to prioritize immediate cost savings and perceived efficiency gains without a detailed understanding of data handling implications. This fails to address potential regulatory violations, such as those related to data privacy or cross-border data transfer, which could lead to significant fines and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach is to assume that IBM Cloud standard security features are sufficient without conducting a specific assessment against the organization's unique risk profile and regulatory obligations. This overlooks the shared responsibility model in cloud computing and can lead to security gaps. Finally, deferring the impact assessment until after deployment is a critical failure. This reactive stance makes remediation significantly more complex and costly, and it demonstrates a disregard for due diligence and regulatory foresight, which are ethical imperatives in technology adoption. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to cloud adoption. This involves 1. Clearly defining the scope of the cloud adoption and the types of data involved. 2. Identifying all applicable regulatory requirements and industry standards. 3. Conducting a thorough impact assessment that evaluates data security, privacy, sovereignty, and compliance implications of chosen IBM cloud services. 4. Developing a mitigation plan for identified risks. 5. Continuously monitoring and reviewing the cloud environment for ongoing compliance. This structured process ensures that technological advancements are pursued responsibly and ethically, with a clear understanding of their potential consequences. Question 19. The risk matrix shows a moderate risk of data exposure for a new IBM cloud service due to misconfiguration potential. The project team has proposed a rapid deployment strategy to meet a critical business deadline, suggesting they will address the risk post-deployment. What is the most appropriate decision-making approach? Option A. Halt the deployment until a comprehensive, in-depth security audit can be completed, even if it means missing the business deadline. Option B. Approve the rapid deployment with a commitment to implement specific, documented mitigation steps within 48 hours of go-live and schedule a post-deployment review. Option C. Delegate the decision to the lead technical architect, trusting their judgment to manage the risk effectively without further consultation. Option D. Proceed with the rapid deployment as planned, assuming the risk is acceptable given the business urgency, and address any issues that arise reactively. The correct answer is B. Approve the rapid deployment with a commitment to implement specific, documented mitigation steps within 48 hours of go-live, and schedule a post-deployment review. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for rapid deployment of a new IBM cloud service with the imperative to adhere to established governance and risk management processes. The pressure to deliver quickly can tempt individuals to bypass or shortcut critical decision-making steps, potentially leading to unforeseen risks and non-compliance. Careful judgment is required to ensure that speed does not compromise security, compliance, or the long-term viability of the solution. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it systematically evaluates the identified risks against the proposed mitigation strategies and the business objectives. This aligns with the principles of responsible cloud adoption, emphasizing a proactive and informed approach to risk management. By engaging relevant stakeholders and documenting the decision-making process, it ensures accountability and transparency, which are fundamental to good governance and regulatory compliance within the IBM cloud framework. This method prioritizes informed decision-making over expediency, thereby safeguarding the organization's assets and reputation. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over thorough risk assessment fails to adequately identify and address potential vulnerabilities. This can lead to security breaches, data loss, or non-compliance with industry regulations and IBM's own service-level agreements. Another incorrect approach that relies solely on the technical team's initial assessment without broader stakeholder input neglects the business and operational implications of the risks, potentially leading to solutions that are technically sound but strategically unsound or unmanageable. Third incorrect approach that defers the decision indefinitely without a clear path forward creates operational paralysis and misses business opportunities, while also failing to manage the inherent risks of inaction. All these incorrect approaches demonstrate a failure to apply a structured decision-making framework, leading to potential regulatory breaches and ethical lapses. By not acting with due diligence, professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the business objectives and the associated risks, as visualized in the risk matrix. This framework should involve 1. Risk identification and assessment, thoroughly understanding the nature and impact of each identified risk. 2. Mitigation strategy development, proposing practical and effective measures to reduce identified risks to an acceptable level. 3. Stakeholder consultation, engaging all relevant parties, e.g., security, compliance, legal, business units, to gather diverse perspectives and ensure buy-in. 4. Decision and documentation, making a clear, informed decision based on the risk assessment and mitigation plan, and meticulously documenting the rationale, assumptions, and approvals. 5. Monitoring and review, establishing a process for ongoing monitoring of risks and the effectiveness of mitigation strategies. Question 20. The control framework reveals that a client is eager to migrate a sensitive customer database to IBM Cloud to leverage its scalability and cost efficiencies. The client's primary concern is to complete the migration within a tight deadline to meet a new product launch. The consultant is tasked with designing the migration strategy. What is the most appropriate approach for the consultant to ensure a secure and compliant migration while meeting the client's business objectives? Option A. Conduct a thorough risk assessment of the data and the intended IBM cloud services. Engage with the client's security and compliance teams to define security requirements and design a migration strategy that incorporates IBM Cloud security best practices and relevant compliance controls. Option B. Prioritize the fastest migration path, assuming IBM Cloud's default security settings are sufficient, and address any potential security gaps post-migration after the product launch. Option C. Focus exclusively on optimizing migration costs and performance, as the client has emphasized speed and budget as their top priorities, and defer all security and compliance discussions until after the initial migration is complete. Option D. Implement the migration using the client's existing on-premises security policies and tools, without fully investigating how these translate or integrate with IBM Cloud's native security capabilities and the shared responsibility model. The correct answer is B. Prioritize the fastest migration path, assuming IBM Cloud's default security settings are sufficient, and address any potential security gaps post-migration after the product launch. Explanation. The control framework reveals a common challenge in cloud adoption, balancing the need for rapid innovation with robust security and compliance. Organizations often face pressure to deploy new services quickly to gain a competitive edge. However, without a thorough understanding of the shared responsibility model and the specific security controls available within IBM Cloud, they risk misconfigurations that can lead to data breaches or non-compliance with regulatory requirements. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of IBM Cloud's security posture, the client's specific regulatory obligations, and the ability to translate technical capabilities into business-aligned security strategies. Correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a proactive, risk-based strategy. By engaging with the client's security and compliance teams early in the design phase, the consultant ensures that security is not an afterthought but an integral part of the solution. This involves understanding the data sensitivity, the applicable regulatory landscape, e.g., GDPR, HIPAA, if applicable to the client's industry and location. Though for this exam, we focus on general cloud security principles as outlined by IBM, and leveraging IBM Cloud's built-in security services and best practices. This approach aligns with the principle of security by design and demonstrates a commitment to responsible cloud governance, minimizing the likelihood of costly remediation and reputational damage. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost optimization without adequately assessing security implications is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the potential financial and legal repercussions of security vulnerabilities, which can far outweigh any initial cost savings. It violates the ethical obligation to provide secure and reliable solutions. Another incorrect approach that neglects to validate the client's understanding of the shared responsibility model is also professionally unacceptable. This oversight can lead to critical security gaps, as the client may assume IBM Cloud handles security aspects that are, in fact, their responsibility. This failure to educate and clarify roles can result in significant compliance failures and security incidents. Finally, an approach that prioritizes speed of deployment over thorough security configuration review, even with the intention of addressing it later, is professionally unsound. While agility is important, critical security configurations should be validated before production deployment. Post-deployment remediation is often more complex and carries a higher risk of error or oversight. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the client's business objectives and their regulatory environment. 2. Assess the data sensitivity and the potential risks associated with its processing and storage in the cloud. 3. Map these requirements to IBM Cloud security services and features, paying close attention to the shared responsibility model. 4. Incorporate security and compliance considerations into the solution design from the outset. 5. Document all security configurations and responsibilities clearly. 6. Continuously monitor and review security posture post-deployment.